I'm curious, because you come from the gladiator world that can't consider consequences, that has to keep playing through everything, even though everyone's bigger than you, and you decide to charge at James Harrison because you're a fool, a delusional fool. What is the Dolphins' responsibility to a quarterback who has been concussion prone, has had some brain scrambling, and there have been here too many concussions? Kenny Pickett has had a couple as well. Many of you are saying, well, what about him?
I actually was the one who brought that up in the middle of the season.
Nice.
For all the people in my mentions who were like, what about Kenny Pickett? I said he's had 2 concussions and he's played through them, and
when your
hasn't played through them. But.
When your argument starts with "what about her," you've lost.
Yeah, I know. I was just.
It's just like it's so lame. Like we can have a conversation about Tua, the one that Chris Cody I thought brought up well, which is, well, if he's medically clear, then what do you do? Because you're playing a playoff game on Sunday. Like it matters a lot.
It doesn't even have to be a playoff game. If a player is medically cleared by a training staff, you and Truss make these decisions. What do you do? I think when you apply playoff game to it, you're like, well, under a normal circumstance, I'd care for the player, but because it's a playoffs, I can't care for him.
Well, I mean, there's so many factors at play here, and I'm thinking specifically of just Tua Tagovailoa's situation, right? Like a playoff win for him is huge. I mean, for his career and everything we talked about as players that you put into this and what you ultimately want to get out of it. It's the same reason why he came back probably as fast as he did the first time, because he wants to be out there. He wants to be making those plays, those throws, proving people wrong, showing people that he is a QB1 in this league and he can take the Dolphins to the promised land and deliver on the expectation of when he was drafted. I would say with the 2 concussions that we've seen from him, right, 2+, depending on how you look at it. Kenny Pickett has 2 concussions, yes. We watched Tua get hurt the way that we did, right? And one of them was not considered a concussion, which, again, we've seen a lot of things. We've seen enough of these. We're not doctors. I've had concussions. We've seen a lot of these to know that there was something wrong. And the NFLPA and everyone has come out and said that that was not handled the right way. That being said, for Tua's own, it becomes a conversation of, is the upside worth the downside? If you come into this game and you get another concussion, like, the conversation won't be, did he come back too fast? It's you should never play football again. That's not worth it. If your goal is to continue on with your career, and there's already been discussions about that, right? Should he continue on, which is natural in these situations? I don't think there's enough upside for whatever could happen in the playoff game to make it worth you coming back. And I know that's going to suck. It's going to suck for Dolphins fans. It's going to suck for some of the players in the locker room who want their quarterback there. It's going to suck for the coach. It's going to suck for Tua, because he's helped put this team in a situation. He's earned his right to be here. But in my opinion, as someone who's gone through multiple concussions in a season and had to go on IR for concussions, it was the same hard conversation that I had to have with myself. And ultimately, that's where it landed.
Selfishly for Tua, if you're staring down the barrel of potentially making $100 million with somebody, whether the Dolphins or somebody else, selfishly, if it was me, and I know I've had maybe possibly 3 concussions, at least 2 documented ones, selfishly, I sit down and be like, you know what? I'm not playing to facilitate a contract that can give me that generational wealth down the line.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think you got that dog in you.
Bobby, when you're looking at $100 million or not.
No dog.
English Sitter Spaniel.
No dog.
Basset
You're
hound.
a little putty tat. It's what you are.
A little putty tat.
Mike played JV football and quit.
I mean, it definitely puts that in.
Oh, goddamn. Oh, wow.
I didn't play much.
It doesn't. That is definitely considered. I mean, I'm not even talking about from the business angle, right? Because that is the worst thing that could possibly happen for your next contract. Is now you have that. People are already looking at you that way. The best thing you could do is let yourself heal, and that's just, again, I'm going to get killed the same way for saying it. But as a player, for what he's gone through this season, I can't imagine a situation where it's worth it for anybody. Like, I don't think there's a.
It was varsity, asshole.
Take us through, though, what it is that you suffered and IR, and explain it to people, because they're awfully flippant with his brain and in dismissing me, because I do want to explore this. I'm rarely looking for clickbait, although if I were doing it, it would be dressed as someone from Dodgeball talking about Tua. So I certainly understand the accusation because
you have done that before.
I have done that before, but I wasn't doing it here. I just think that you're talking about a danger and a liability that isn't worth the risk, that 9 months of rest is better than a couple of weeks of rest, given what it is that he has suffered.
If I may, as I experience it, I was like, oh, Dan's got a heat check right now. And you know why? Because I was scared to even weigh in on that. Because you were so right before that Cincinnati Bengals Thursday night game. Because you were kind of saying, I don't think he should be out there, even though it was reported that he didn't suffer concussion before that. And I was like, well, if the doctors clear him, that's football, baby. And then Thursday night happens and his fingers are stuck there. I'm like, oh, I sounded like an asshole. Dan sounded really right and super compassionate. And then I saw you going even stronger on it. Keep in mind, he suffered yet another concussion, and there's more. The variables have changed some, but I'm like, well, shit, he can be more right.
Mike, he threw 3 interceptions perfectly tossed to linebackers and defensive backs because he didn't know where he was.
That's the thing that's so stark about this.
And then didn't remember them.
Right.
But he also didn't play well when he wasn't concussed. He had a bad stretch.
And he had a very good first half in that Green Bay game.
Yeah, but
their offense was working.
Talking
in that
about
game.
The losing streak.
Correct. But if we're saying, like, the stark contrast in good Tua versus bad Tua is so obvious and so dictated by his brain that's really the reason why there is such concern for him, is because you watch him in that Green Bay game, that offense was flowing. It was a great game to watch in the first half. And the second half, you're like, what the hell happened? And the fact that there is such an obvious explanation, which is his brain was not working. And we've seen, that's like the second time this season that we've seen such stark, obvious evidence for this player being harmed by brain injury. Like that really is the reason why. Kenny Pickett, like, we don't have the example of, well, this is what happened before, or this is what happened after, or this is how it affected his performance. We know with Tua how it affected his performance and how it affected him as a human being with the multiple times he suffered concussions.